Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, climate change economic research has long shown that the market economy of agriculture, forestry, water, coastal and maritime resources, energy, tourism and hospitality industry, commercial and industrial businesses are vulnerable to climate change, particularly in the developing countries like Pakistan. According to the Worldwide Climate Index, Pakistan ranked 5th most vulnerable country to the impacts of climate change despite low carbon emission nation. Climate-induced disasters in both their quantum and frequency are alarmingly on rise. Pakistan's economy drastically affected by suddenly varying temperatures, rapidly changing monsoon patterns, erratic rainfall, droughts, floods and storm surge. In Pakistan, an estimated 49 million population is residing in areas at risk of 4 to 5% decline in quality of life by 2030. Pakistan is an agro-economy. 25 million people are directly associated and having jobs there, their livelihoods. It's matter of food security, employment, and particularly the industrial raw material. But most of the reports of the World Bank, Asian Development Bank and lots of other researchers show that due to climate change, reduction in wheat and rice productivity would cost Pakistan 19.5 billion US dollars by 2050. To discuss this very important juncture where Pakistan is the most vulnerable to the climatic changes, it is important to discuss the economy because economy is fragile because of this one factor alone. To discuss this, we have in our studios Dr. Ijaz Ahmad, he is a senior environmentalist. Most welcome to you, sir. Zainab Naeem, she is an environmental expert and head of ecological sustainability and circular economy. Most welcome to you, Zainab. Thank you very much for your presence as well. And online joining us, Mr. Abbas Moosvi, he is the research fellow at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Most welcome to you, Abbas. And my first question directed to you that after 2022 floods, a post-disaster need assessment report in October 2022 suggests that damages were estimated at least 14.9 billion US dollars, while recovery needs soaring to at least 16.3 billion US dollars. But that hardly met actually what were the pledges by the international community. So how Pakistan, a highly vulnerable country to the climate change, facing economic turmoil and staggering debt burden, can cope up such a situation?
Gee, thank you so much, Faisal, for having me on again. This is a crucial issue that we face as a country and as an economy as well. I think a good starting point for us to be would be to sort of locate the source of this trouble. 92% of emissions currently come from the global north. The global north constitutes countries including the US, Canada, Mexico, the entirety of Europe, Israel, Australia, and New Zealand. We have to be very clear about this because there's a lot of research empirically demonstrating that 92% of emissions are coming from these areas of the world. Now, why is this is a very important question to also ask. How I see it is that there is a certain institutional capture that is going on around the globe. We have the big fossil fuel industry that is supporting candidates and in terms of coming into Congress and pushing policies and so on and so forth. Now, this is something that has to be changed. It has to be challenged because if we're talking about democracy, democracy essentially means bringing or addressing the concerns and grievances and needs of ordinary citizens. And if we have this sort of capture by big fossil fuel companies through strategic funds that are allocated to their preferred candidates, then we can never hope to address this problem. This is not a problem that is domestic. It is global in its nature. Even in Pakistan's case, we have all of our international power producers, beginning from the 1994 energy policy that was introduced. Now, the nature of these companies are such that they don't prefer renewable sources of their energy. They prefer oil and gas. And so beginning in 1994, we have also sort of shifted in that direction. And we have begun to sort of move towards oil and gas and carbon emissions and so on. Having said that,
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Abbas Moosvi sir, thank you. Your point well taken. Zainab, when we are talking about particularly the climatic changes, the rapidly changing weather patterns, temperatures are having the lethal effects on the sowing seasons, the vegetation harvesting results in a low crop yield, and particularly even fruit orchards, vegetables are affected. So then, what about the export economy of Pakistan?
So let me start with what happened in 2022, because that is one of the recent manifestations of climate change being more than a crisis itself. Rather, it has become a socioeconomic crisis for Pakistan and even for other countries. So what happened in 2022, we had early heat waves, the spring heat waves, and a prolonged dry spell throughout, followed by the super floods. So because of the heat dome that covered South Asia region, Pakistan and India, temperatures kept soaring, and usually the grain development period or the grain maturity period for wheat is around 10 to 12 days. But due to that sudden heat waves, because we transitioned directly from winters to summer, the grain couldn't mature, and we had an improperly developed wheat crop at that time. And then suddenly, after the dry spell, we had the super floods. So the crop was already being damaged because of the heat waves, and then the floods, it inundated the standing crops, and the arable land was inundated completely, and the water remained there for like 6 to 7 months. So I think again, being even earlier due to heat waves and floods, the arable land has been affected by the climate change impacts. So export economy, if I compare the overall arable land and the cash crops of Pakistan, including rice and wheat cultivation and even the sugar cane crop and even the cotton crop, it has been affected throughout, like for the last 2 decades. It's been affected every year. So I think the export economy has been completely declined, and it has already been projected by the development partners and by the reports by IPCC as well, that over the next few years we are going to face a huge decline.
You're talking about Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
IPCC as well as the World Bank report on climate smart agriculture. So
definitely.
the decline is going to be around 18% for rice crop and around 10% for wheat crop till 2040.
Definitely.
So we are going to suffer a lot.
It is going to be very horrible, a country which is based upon agriculture.
Yes.
Really. So Dr. Ijaz, when some of the scientific projections show that only 1%, 1 degree Celsius rise in temperature is actually Pakistan's wheat yield particularly is estimated to decline 6 to 9%, as Zainab is saying us, because of the 2022 floods, the projections are that some sort of 10 to 18% of decline. So even slight rise or the lesser rise in temperature will severely impact the cash crops like mango or cotton. So what do you say that it is going to be, do you not think so that it is going to be disastrous for a country which is agro-economy?
It is going to be, of course, disastrous in the sense that whenever a rise in temperature happens, it's not only the crop which is affected, but also there are external factors also. For example, the intensity of pests increase tremendously. We have seen that the locust was quite severe just 2 to 3 years. The locust attack was very severe in the southern part of Pakistan, and the crop was severely damaged. So actually the pest increase in the number, the species as well as the number severely damages the crops. So it is not only the direct impact on crop yield, but also there are other external factors. Similarly, when we talk about the floods, the topsoil, which is the most productive soil, and it takes actually decades to develop that topsoil, which is more fertile, also washes out. So again, you have to either give more input in the form of fertilizer, or you have to suffer in the form of yield. So it is very unfortunate that be it any crop. And then another factor which is very important, as Zainab mentioned, the intensity of rain and the rainfall at a particular time. We used to have like 15th of January, Sawan will start, or July, Similarly, you know, like
definitely monsoon rains and all
yes,
that.
There were patterns which were there, but those patterns have changed. I remember last year in the neighborhood of Islamabad, there was massive rains, and the crop,
and even the climatic seasons are shifted from at least 1 or 2 months away.
Right. Yes. So the people were unable to grow maize crop because there was not enough dry soil. The soil was quite wet and moisture content was very high. So that is why they were unable to actually, so they lose the whole crop season. So these are some of the, you know, like certain areas of concern. So we need to look into options which are more, you know, like scientifically find out certain varieties which are less vulnerable and which we can grow on off season as well.
So Zainab, we have seen a series of floods in 2010 and 2011. In 2022 it was like a super flood. So when crops, livestock, housing, livelihoods totally destroyed, while resultantly the poverty, urbanization, disease cause more financial losses and damages. So that has overall burdened the national economy. So how do you see a vulnerable country which is already in economic turmoil and going through such disasters, whether we cope up with that?
Well, I think first of all, climate change is a crisis that has not been created by Pakistan.
Yeah, definitely.
We are
Unfortunately
suffering.
not. Yes.
So we are suffering because it was created by somebody else, but we are going through the impacts. And economic turmoil is again, economic crisis is also another crisis that is not and that Pakistan is not the only country facing economic crisis, but climate change has exacerbated that crisis as well. So I think. If in context of agriculture, being an agriculture economy, almost 75% of this agriculture, it supports the employment sector as well. So it is one of the largest sector that supports employment. So of course the farming communities and then the associated industries that are connected, they are going to suffer, and they are already suffering, and then we are also under debt. So that, you know, sort of exacerbates the issues. But the problem is that even if we are asking for the right sort of investment, that is again a problem. Even right now, as we are sitting here discussing this issue, there is a dialogue happening around loss and damage, you know, that how countries should be supported. So in context of economic support, especially by climate induced disasters, I think a lot needs to be done. Of course, doing our own homework is something that should be, you know, priority, where capacities are needed, where gaps are existing. But again, the developed countries, they should also be supporting. Now our breadbasket Punjab, it is suffering a lot because there is no arable land left, and again that has declined over the years. And secondly, there is a trend of rural to urban migration. So because of urbanization, and that is also being induced by climate change crisis. So there is a trend towards this migration, and then because of urbanization, of course, there is no land use planning. So we have to convert that arable land into urbanized land. So that is something that Pakistan needs to improve in context of ecological zonation, how we need to preserve the land that is suitable for agriculture and not convert it into urbanized land, and how but again that is not something that Pakistan should be doing only. Again, we have to get the support from developed partners as well in developed countries.
Obviously, you're absolutely right.
Ask for the finance, that is our right, that is not in the form of aid, that is something we require.
Obviously, because
so
we are suffering because of the global north.
Yes.
So that's why it's
Yes.
important that it's our right. So Dr. Ijaz, you have a very important connection when it comes to the coastline and the sea, because you served there in Karachi as well. So Pakistan rely a lot on imports, and how extreme weather conditions and rising sea levels can disrupt shipping routes, delay in delivery, harm the ports, transportation and coastal infrastructure particularly.
Well, I think over a period of time we have witnessed that the number and amount, the intensity of cyclones have increased tremendously. I remember there was actually a study which showed that I think from 1947 up to 1980, cyclone will come maybe after 5 to 8 years. But now we have witnessed that the cyclones are coming every year, or even in some years there are 2 instances of cyclones.
Means the intensity is rising actually.
Intensity and frequency also.
Frequency also.
So that actually will definitely have impact on the transport sector, on the marine routes. because like it will be very difficult, it will be highly risky to travel during that high sea cyclones. And most of these cyclones, they start from Bay of Bengal and then ultimately they end up in by the coastal area of Pakistan. There are a few of them which actually started from the western side, and they also ended in Pakistan. So that is a very highly risky initiative. And then the overall insurance policies, you have to pay extra in such situation where you feel that okay, these are vulnerable places, vulnerable routes. So then you have to like add up more. So that will increase the cost of travel, cost of like each item will also be
transportation, the bulk carriers, the crude oil and all of those, definitely.
And then also like as you mentioned about the crude oil, that I think has a significant impact on the economy of Pakistan.
Overall economy of Pakistan,
Exactly.
because we are the larger importers of the crude oil, and are actually
So
the
there are
import
direct-
bill is largely consist of different oil products. So Dr. Saab, do you think that as a result of this global warming and increasing cyclones, as you have rightly mentioned, the melting glaciers and the glacial lake outburst floods, flash floods, landslides, avalanches and lots of other, unfortunately, the disasters, changing weather patterns are actually affecting the tourism and hospitality industry and affiliated sectors with that, because coastal tourism another factor, and then the tourism overall in entire Pakistan?
Well, definitely it will have a very significant impact, in a sense that like the geophysical situation of Pakistan is such that at the same time we are facing severe floods, and then on another area we are facing drought. Similarly, when we talk about the tourism in the northern part of Pakistan, the instances of glacier lake outburst floods have increased tremendously. The glacier melting results in these GLOF action, and ultimately it damages the tourist infrastructure, as well as it damages the overall the communication, these roads, the communication in the form of telephone or in the form of other networks. So definitely, and then when we talk about the coastal area, again due to these cyclonic activities, that is another aspect which we need to like look, because they also damaging the tourist industry, the infrastructure. This situation, I think mostly Pakistan, in Pakistan people prefer to go into the northern part of Pakistan, but I think we need to look for other options, other areas.
Definitely. Doctor, your point well taken. Zainab, Pakistan's population is rapidly on rise. The growth rate is 2.83%, and it is quite high, but as you know that at least 25 million people are directly employed in the agriculture sector. So this agro-based economy is actually running the livelihood of the people. If climatic conditions are become uncertain, and most people actually fear losing their jobs, so what's your opinion that how it is going to be a mess for economy, for the population and their livelihoods?
Well, I think we are already facing the brunt. This is a state of emergency, and the action, if it's not taken now, then it means we are already moving towards the doom. So I think, but again, there's still some hope left, as my colleagues were also mentioning about the sudden onset of climatic disasters. They have increased. Like over last few decades, we used to experience floods like after 5 years maybe, or 10 years, or maybe after a decade, but now every consequent year we are facing floods. So I think in context of economy, we need to prioritize climate in each and every policy that we are developing.
Obviously.
In each and every action plan that is being developed, it has to be aligned with the climate change impacts. Apart from that, I think the budget season is almost around the corner. So I think budget and financing around climate change and climate action needs to be prioritized as well. Although there has been a lot of positive development in context of the elections that we have seen.
Definitely in election manifestos, there were lots of commitments about the climatic changes, and adaptation, mitigation, funds for different aspects and all that.
So I think in that perspective, a lot of there is no more skepticism around climate change. People
Obviously,
do
obviously.
realize the fact that climate change is here. But apart from that, I think we need to align the investments and also the investor relationship in context of climate risk insurance. And for that, climate risk insurance policies have to be developed. The banking sector needs to be integrated and aligned as well. The MFIs, microfinance institutions that can directly support the farming communities.
Obviously.
I think their alignment is crucial at this point, and not just the budgetary resources, but also at provincial level, at the local level, the local government structure needs to be developed and revamped in context of their alignment with the current climate change that is happening, the crisis that is happening. And again, we need to treat it as the emergency situation, not something that we are looking forward to be happening in next few years. This is actually happening. So I think in that perspective, everything, every policy, every action plan, if it is not aligned with climate change, we are going to face the disasters.
Definitely, we have to take practical steps to head her that, as you have rightly said, that it is not going to happen, but it is happening now, and we have to take actions on that. Several studies, Dr. Sahab, several studies results actually show that it indicates that Pakistan, 22.8% of the surface area and 49.6% of the population is actually living at the high risk due to the impacts of the climatic changes. And as a result, beside agriculture, industrial and commercial sectors, their impact is at the large scale. So how do you see that, what are the actions that the governments must have to do right now?
Well, I think if we see what happened in 2022, the flood actually inundated about 60 to 70% of the surface area of the country, and the impact remained for even till now. There are certain areas in Sindh where we still see that the water is standing, and they are damaging the overall crop and the overall the economy of the country. Generally climate change policy that was actually developed in 2012 have all the integrations, and they actually identified various sectors and what are the issues of those sectors, and then what is required in order to cope with the situation.
Obviously.
Similarly, there is a framework of action also which was developed, that what we need to do, how we need to do, who will do, and when we need to do. So these prescriptions are already there. It is important that we look into that, and then as just mentioned by Zainab, that we need to integrate in the budget how we can actually integrate this. It is important. Otherwise, we will just be talking and nothing will happen. The policies will remain on the shelves, and ultimately no action will be taken. So I think it is time to look for all those documentations which were developed through a very consultative process, and provincial governments, even elected representative were also involved, education, academia, they were all there, communities were also there. So I think it is important to look into that aspect.
Yeah, definitely it is. And Zainab, as we were discussing earlier, you were referring to a World Bank report that that titled Climate Silence in Pakistan. So it anticipates, we have already discussed that to GDP at least the decline of 18 to 20% of by 2050 related to the different aspects in which agriculture is also there, industry is also there, the cottage industries, because agriculture has lots of raw material which is associated with industries, and it means the disruption of whole supply chain. So how do you see in that aspect? Pakistan is already a fragile economy and solely dependent on agriculture. So when such a situation happens, how it is going to be cope up, because the climatic change is on one side and you have economic losses on the other side?
So once again, I think it is all interconnected, economy, environment and the social aspects, everything is interconnected with climate. So I think as already discussed, that the policies alignment and then the budgetary resources, but of course we shouldn't be expecting everything from the government. But again, I think post 2022 there has been a lot of activism around environment, and there has been a lot of judicial activism around environment as well. So I believe that we are really good with paperwork, and some of the laws and acts are really good, but the implementation has been lacking. So people are getting aware about it, and they are now you know, connecting environment and every trend with climate. So they are moving towards eco-friendly initiatives and everything. But apart from that, I believe for enforcement, I think some stringent activities or some stringent sort of enforcement is still required.
Measures are required.
Exactly. Environmental impact assessment and initial environmental examination for everything, for like as per the Pakistan Environment Protection Act, you know, that is by law we have to ensure this. But if that is not being ensured properly, then of course agriculture will suffer, urbanization will suffer. We are now facing more urban floods. Initially we used to face rural flooding or riverine flooding. Now urban flooding trend has increased over the years.
Obviously.
Why? Because of misplanned urbanization, and that is again because the increase in population is dictating every policy that we are making, and then there is illegal urbanization trend as well.
Absolutely.
So for agriculture and economy, I think there's a need to integrate climate smart policies and climate smart agricultural practices, and also the indigenous community practices that are already existing in different parts of the country, in rural areas as well. So I think we need to align already existing knowledge that we have, you know, supporting that for the existing policies that we are making, and then integrating smart technologies like utilizing you know, drone technology to measure maybe the locust attack, you know, where it can happen and how it can happen, and so we can, how much crop we can secure. Then resistant crop varieties needs to be introduced. I think a lot is being done already, but at civil society organization level as well, more awareness needs to be created at local level. So farmers are also aware that, you know, this is the climate disaster that is expected, this is the forecasted expected disaster. So what is your indigenous knowledge available, and these are the technologies available. So we should be utilizing and clubbing everything to develop a more holistic approach towards
Obviously,
managing
you're
agriculture.
absolutely very right. Dr. Ijaz, as Zainab said, and we are witnessing that at least 60% of the chunk of Pakistan's exports belongs to textile, and it is at least 8.5% to the GDP. So textile is solely based on better cotton varieties. But unfortunately, we have seen over the years that cotton is either the disease inflicted or its production is getting lower and lower. So these economic losses are actually associated with climate change. So these are snatching our industrial output, livelihoods, lower the living standards as well, because if the people are unemployed because of the climate change, it means their living standards are nowhere. And then it increases actually the poverty. The nutrition level is going low, then sickness, mortality, and ultimately the social instability. So how do you see, because this is going to be a real-time hurdle in any sort of economic development and even the stability of any country?
Well, I think there are now, I mean, like over a period of time, various research studies have done, and there are different civil society organizations. I remember WWF was involved in Better Cotton initiative. And when we talk about cotton, we basically, it's a huge chain. We talk about, you know, like ginning factory, you just talk about pickers, you talk about the export of textile. So it's huge, you know, like.
We were also listening about the BT cotton and the pink cotton varieties as well, but
yeah. But then over a period of time, I think there has been, you know, like training programs, awareness raising as far as the cotton seeds are concerned, what kind of cotton seed. But unfortunately, the mafia, which is you know, like a very strong mafia as far as the pesticide dealers, etc., are concerned, they are overtaking. You know, like there are very.
It is also a chain
yes,
of mafias. Those
yes,
are existing, unfortunately.
Exactly. So they promote to spray maybe 13, 14 times in one crop season, whereas there are studies which shows that even 6 to 7 sprays are good enough to get the same amount of crop, which is, you know, like the yield
Even the Special Investment Facilitation Council, they have developed the softwares, very lucrative one, and you can even having the farm size, what sort of how much water it needed, how much
smart agriculture.
Yes, definitely. That is related to smart agriculture. So while farmer, I think so, the education is needed to the farmers. The information.
Yes, extension, education, and also like the interaction with the farmers on regular basis. Farmer school type arrangement is required, where farmers should be educated on regular basis, not only related to cotton crop but also to the alternate crop like wheat, when because they like share the same area, same landscape. So ultimately, if there is an impact or there is the concern in one crop,
definitely
it will transfer to another as
well.
So
Zainab, do you think that the policy reforms, adoption to the green technologies, sustainable practice, mitigation and adaptation, and more renewable energy projects, like attracting green investments and expanding the trade horizon in the term of environmental friendly aspects, so that might help climatic resilient economic development?
So I think innovation is one of the key solutions for achieving, or for strengthening climate action. I think one of the initiatives was solarization of tube wells. So overall, it has also helped to strengthen the agriculture sector and support the farming communities, keeping in view the current energy trends in Pakistan and overall energy outlook that was not very good. And once again, due to our international commitments towards clean energy transition and also for the climate commitments, I believe solarization could play a very important role or pivotal role for supporting the farming communities. And also, apart from solarization, I think smart techniques of using and reusing water, because water we are becoming water scarce and we will soon be water stressed country in next 2 to 3 years. We are already facing the brunt. So I think in that perspective, our policies are really improving over the years, but enforcement is again something that needs to be strengthened. So farmers awareness is needed, capacity building programs are already being planned, academia is also supporting, the research is there, but there is still a gap between industry and the academia to strengthen the action in context of agriculture and promoting agriculture. Now SIFC and other
industry, academia and the government institutions, this triangle must have to be completed if we want to have real-time action.
Exactly. Now we do have the agriculture institutions, the academia agriculture institutions, but again the trend within youth is not very promising. They are not ready to study agriculture, they don't see the future. So I think in that perspective as well, we need to encourage them, that we need to show them what stands ahead in the future for them if they study agriculture, if they come up with innovative ideas, and how much government is willing to support them. That also matters in that
definitely. You are absolutely right, because the linkages are absent actually. Your think tanks and particularly the academic research and lots of other the institutional research institute, because we have in NIBG Faisalabad, we have the Cotton Research Institute in Multan, they are doing excellent job. We have arid agriculture, the Bari Institute in Chakwal,
and the corporate farming aspect is also there.
Yes, so PARC and NARC, they are National Agriculture Research Council and Pakistan Agriculture, they are doing excellent job, but unfortunately there are some missing links. We have to establish those links. You are absolutely right. Dr. Sahab, what about the responsibility of the North towards the global South? Because that is a real problem, because they are not understanding through which pain and anxiety and stress actually the global South is going through.
North is always considers climate change as some like something which is not a reality.
Obviously,
the president of US, the previous president, he still feels that climate change is not an issue. Although they have started suffering from the disasters due to climate change, but they are not realizing it, and that is one of the reason that.
But we have an idea that how the business tycoons are actually thinking about, because they don't want to give any penny to the global South without any reason really.
So the initiative in the last COP, the loss and damage,
and they don't actually want to make climate change a reason really.
Yes. So that was a challenge for like developing countries to bring it onto the table, even it was not part of the agenda, the loss and damage initiative. but ultimately they have to include it because of the pressure by the developing countries. Pakistan was instrumental in that because Pakistan was vice chair. I think we need to enforce that. We need to strengthen ourselves. We need to strengthen the whole community which is suffering, because this is a very political agenda. Unless we take this agenda through political ways by linking with China, with India, with Brazil, with Indonesia, who are emerging economy, I think we will be unable to have this loss and damage initiative recognized. Although they have starting thinking about it, but I think it will take another 10 to 15
Definitely,
years.
you are absolutely right. Zainab, if you just briefly tell us, very briefly, that there are lots of areas we have that we have to seek assistance from the World Bank. Definitely environmental social governance, that is one aspect which is we are lagging actually. Then we have ADB report available that says that at least Pakistan requires the adaptation fund of $7 billion to $14 billion. How it is going to match?
So if I talk about the non-economic losses, they're not even accounted in this estimate.
Yes,
so I think the funding needs are quite huge, and that is our right, and we need that funding. So but apart from that, I think Pakistan needs to work on local funding aspect, how we are going to mobilize local funding, how we are going to engage private sector. We must not only rely on the international funding. We don't know when it's going to come, as my colleague also here mentioned about loss and damage. We don't know when we are going to get that chunk from that funding.
And even the living index and all other projects. Really.
Exactly, but living index is again one of the key initiatives that government of Pakistan has initiated, where they are inviting investors to, these are the areas, these are the opportunities where you can come and invest. So we have sort of provided them the venue, the menu for the investment. Now,
Doctor, very last one. UAE banking sector pledged at least $270 billion of green finance by 2030. Then this private funding called Altira, and Arab Coordination Group has $10 billion and to support the energy transition by 2030, and also whether Pakistan is going to avail such fundings in future?
Pakistan has never actually built the capacity. Even when we had this CDM mechanism, the GCF mechanism, there are different mechanisms which are there, but unfortunately we have not built the capacity to target those funds. But I think if we don't, at the moment there are, like Saudi Arabia is also interested. The carbon trading, I think, is an important aspect where we need to focus and see how we can actually, since we are not
definitely that is very important, because we require another program on carbon market and carbon trading as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Ijaz, for your precious time. Thank you very much, Zainab, for being here at the studios. Viewers, as you have listened to our panelists, it is important that climatic changes' effects on the economy are now apparent and disastrous. Urgent action is required to mitigate these risks and build resilient economies for the future generations. Governments, the businesses and the individuals all have to collaborate, must have to collaborate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, invest in sustainable infrastructure and support vulnerable communities. That is very important, especially after the wake of devastating 2022 floods in Pakistan. We must act decisively to ensure a sustainable and prosperous future for our future generations. This is our today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.